Pain is not a verdict. It's not the end of your story. Pain is an alarm system, a wake-up call from the soul. But just because it hurts doesn't mean it's over. And just because you're bleeding doesn't mean you're beaten. There's a woman somewhere who wakes up every morning and pretends she's okay because she has no time to fall apart. The kids still need lunch. The job still demands her energy. The world still expects her to show up. She's learned how to work through tears. She's learned how to lead while limping, love while lacking, fight while fatigued. And people look at her and say, wow, she's strong. But what they don't know is that her strength wasn't born in comfort. It was born in the palace. You become a warrior in the palace. You become a warrior in the wilderness. You don't learn to roar in peace. You learn it in the pit of adversity. Pain is the gym where your soul gets strong. Every tear you cried watered your courage. Every disappointment became a brick in the foundation of your fortitude. Have you ever seen a mother who buried her child, yet gets up every day and still helps others, still speaks life, still smiles? That's not weakness. That's divine resilience. That's the kind of power pain cannot kill. That's the spirit of a woman who understands that her grief does not cancel her greatness. Look at the single mom who works 2 jobs, comes home, helps her kids with homework, and still whispers a prayer before she sleeps. Don't tell me pain made her powerless. Pain gave her purpose. A woman who went through betrayal, maybe a divorce, maybe someone she loved turned their back, and she felt like her whole identity was tied to that relationship. When it fell apart, so did she. But somewhere in that brokenness, in that midnight of the soul, she found a light. Maybe it was a verse. Maybe it was a sermon. Maybe it was just the echo of her own heart saying, "You're still here." And she rose, not because she wasn't hurting, but because she realized pain is not the end. It's the proving ground of power. Pain is also the teacher no one prays for, but everybody learns from. You don't really understand your own voice until it's the only sound in the room. You don't really know your own strength until your back is against the wall and there's nobody to call. It's in those moments, the raw ones, where you discover you are more than what happened to you. You are not your mistake. You are not your trauma. You are the fire that survived the ashes. Think about the woman who started a business after being laid off. When the world shut a door in her face, she built one with her bare hands. She didn't have investors. She didn't have privilege. She had pain, and she turned it into fuel. She said, I may not have a degree, but I've got destiny. And that pain became her push. Even physically, your body heals itself through pain. A wound that stings is not dying, it's healing. A woman who goes through childbirth understands that pain is a pathway to life. That contractions are violent, but they bring forth miracles. So why do we think emotional pain is any different? Your heartbreak is producing something. Your hardship is not just hurting you, it's shaping you. When you feel pain, you are not powerless. You are being processed. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Gold is refined by fire. And so is the soul of a strong woman. Do you remember the last time you didn't think you'd make it? But you're here, breathing, living, maybe not fully healed, but still fighting. That means your pain didn't kill your power, it activated it. The enemy wanted you to think that pain was your punishment, but it was your preparation. It was your awakening. They said she wouldn't make it. They counted her out before she even got started. She was bleeding, she was bruised, she was abandoned, but she didn't die there. See, a scar is more than just a healed wound. It is a permanent testimony. It says, I've been through something, but it didn't finish me. It says, I was hurt, but I healed. You want to know who you should never underestimate? The woman who has scars, not just on her body, but on her soul. Because those scars are not signs of defeat. They are badges of honor. They don't make her ugly. They make her that C-section scar. It tells the story of a mother who endured the valley of labor and emerged with a life in her arms. The world sees a line across the belly, but heaven sees a portal of pain that birthed purpose. She screamed, she wept, she pushed past the limit of her own body, and now a little voice calls her mama. That scar isn't weakness, it's warrior ink. Think about the woman who once had her heart shattered. She loved someone who didn't love her right. He walked away and left her empty. There were days she couldn't breathe without aching. But look at her now, smiling, stronger, wiser. She's got a scar on her heart, yes, but it means she didn't let bitterness bury her. She learned how to love herself again. That scar, it's a silent sermon that says, I lost something, but I didn't lose myself. Or the woman who trusted a friend, opened up, shared her secrets, her dreams, only to be betrayed. The knife didn't hit her back, it hit her soul. And for a while, she shut down. She stopped believing in people. But one day she woke up and said, that betrayal will not define me. She built new boundaries. She developed discernment. And that scar taught her the language of wisdom. It didn't turn her bitter. It made her better. There's a woman who survived cancer, chemo, hair loss, fatigue, endless needles, 1,000 sleepless nights. And now her body carries scars where tumors used to live. But every mark on her skin is a declaration of war. War fought and won. She might wear wigs, she might move slower, but baby, she's alive. She's still dancing. She's still praising. Her scars don't speak of pain anymore. They speak of power. You see a scar and you think damage, but God sees a scar and says deliverance. You see brokenness, but God sees becoming. That stretch mark on a woman's thighs or belly, society says hide it, shame it, but that stretch mark is a monument. It says I carried something bigger than me. I stretched and I didn't snap. Every line is a lyric in the song of her strength. She might not fit into the world's plastic image of perfection, but she fits into heaven's image of glory. Have you ever met a woman who was told she wasn't enough? Not pretty enough, not smart enough, not good enough, and she started believing it. She hid her dreams. And though the world sees a quiet, guarded woman, what they don't realize is she's a survivor. She got the scars to prove it. She doesn't need to announce her story. Her presence is her power. Every breath she takes is rebellion against the hell she left behind. That woman is dangerous to the darkness because she's not afraid to be real. And don't think for a second that these scars mean she lost the fight. Oh no, she didn't lose. She lived. She endured. She got knocked down, but didn't get knocked out. She might not talk about it. She may not post about it. But if you look closely, you'll see it. In her eyes, in her walk, in her prayer, that woman is a survivor. She's not waiting to be rescued. She's not waiting to be perfect. She's walking into her destiny with visible proof that she fought, she bled, and she won. Because scars are not signs of shame. They're signs of sacred survival. There's a woman, she's working in a toxic job, and every day they try to pull her into gossip, into conflict, into drama. But she stays quiet. She does her job. She prays in the restroom. She wipes her tears before going back to her desk. They call her soft, passive. But what they don't see is that she's not staying silent because she's scared. She's staying silent because she knows God is fighting her battle. Another woman, her family doesn't believe in her. Every time she shares a dream, they shoot it down. So she stopped explaining. She doesn't announce her moves. She's building quietly, grinding in the dark, planting seeds in silence, because she knows something powerful. That's not weakness, as maturity. There's a season where you stop trying to be heard and you start being grounded. You stop proving and start producing. Silence is sacred. It's where you hear from God. It's where your identity gets redefined. Not by the noise of people, but by the whispers of heaven. Think about the mother who's raising her child alone. She's not begging for help or pity. She's silently sacrificing, silently praying, silently creating a future her child can thrive in. You might never hear her complain, but she's carrying a cross few could bear. That kind of silence, that's strength disguised as stillness. There's a woman who was cheated on, lied to, humiliated, and she didn't go online to blast her pain. She didn't burn his clothes or curse his name. She cried. She journaled. She went to therapy. She chose healing over revenge. People said she was weak, but what they didn't see was that her silence wasn't surrender. It was her reclaiming her dignity. She decided she wouldn't let someone else's chaos rewrite her character. She said, I don't need to be loud to be powerful. I don't need to shout to be strong. God sees me, God knows. And when it's time, He'll lift me up. There's a woman who lost everything, her job, her house, her marriage. She could have screamed, could have lashed out, but she chose to be still. She sat in her prayer room, her heart broken, and whispered through trembling lips, Lord, I trust you even now. That's the kind of silence that shakes Because when a woman says nothing but still believes, the enemy can't figure her out. He expects panic. She gives him praise. He expects noise. She gives him knees on the floor and hands lifted to heaven. Silence isn't the absence of action. It's often the presence of divine alignment. It's saying, God, you move how you want. I won't interfere. I won't manipulate. I'll be still and know that you are God. A woman going through a custody battle, she wants to scream. She wants to fight dirty like the other side, but instead she's sitting in courtrooms silent, letting the truth stand on its own. She's trusting that integrity will win what aggression can't, that silence will preserve what shouting would destroy. And it's not easy, but it's holy, because character doesn't shout, it endures. Silence can be a sanctuary. It's where ideas are born. It's where healing begins. It's where callings are heard and courage is cultivated. Sometimes God has to quiet the noise around you so you can finally hear the voice within you. Think about a flower. It doesn't make a sound when it blooms. There's no explosion when the seed breaks open. But just because it's silent doesn't mean it isn't powerful. Growth is quiet, breakthrough is quiet, becoming is quiet, so is victory. Don't judge a woman by her volume, judge her by her vision, by her discipline, by her endurance. Because there are women right now, maybe sitting on the train, walking through the market, cooking in their kitchen, who are silent. They are shifting generations in silence. They are turning pain into power without a word. Because their silence is not surrender, it's the sound of divine strength under control. You don't become powerful in places of comfort. You don't find your strength lying in fields of ease. Power is not born in peace. It's forged in pressure. Real strength is not built when everything's going right. It's built when everything's going right. And you keep standing anyway. Pressure is not your enemy. Pressure is your push. It's the force that takes who you were and shapes who you are becoming. So she's learning to budget with wisdom. She's learning how to pray while cooking. She's learning how to believe even when nothing is changing. That kind of woman, you can't break her, because pressure taught her how to fight without fear. Think about the young woman who went back to school at 35. She's surrounded by 20-year-olds trying to study after putting the kids to bed, fighting shame, fighting doubt, fighting the voice that says it's too late. But every paper she turns in, every test she passes, that's pressure turning into power. She's building discipline in the dark. She's showing her daughters what resilience looks like in real time. She's selling homemade products. She's replying to customer emails while making dinner. She's being told she's crazy, that it won't work. But pressure is teaching her something that no business course could ever teach. It's teaching her how to hustle with heart. It's sharpening her, strengthening her, making her relentless. Because greatness is never handed, it's harnessed through hardship. Or the woman who's battling illness, chronic pain, constant appointments, pills she can't pronounce. She's tired of explaining her condition to people who don't understand, but still, she goes to work. She raises her kids. She laughs when she can. She worships when she wants to weep. That pressure is not just pain, it's preparation. She's learning how to live with purpose while carrying pain. That's power that no platform can give you. That's strength that no spotlight can produce. That's the kind of power pressure produces: unshakable, unbreakable, undeniable. There's also pressure to evolve, pressure to heal from things that hurt you deeply, pressure to forgive those who never apologize, pressure to lead when you feel lost. But here's the revelation: God will allow pressure to refine you, not define you. He'll let you feel the weight, but not be crushed by it. Because under pressure, the weak collapse, but the called emerge. Remember childbirth. A woman carries a baby for months, but nothing brings that life forth without pressure. The contractions are intense, the pushing is painful, but the baby doesn't come through comfort, it comes through pressure. New life, new beginnings, new power, they are all birthed through pressure. So when life starts tightening, when situations seem too heavy, too much, don't panic. Remember, pressure doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're forming. Something powerful is being born in you. And when it finally breaks through, the world will not just see the product. They'll feel the power that was produced through every press, every push, every silent prayer, and every painful moment you refused to quit. She doesn't move like everybody else because she's not fueled by what they're fueled by. She's not powered by applause. She's not driven by followers. She's not energized by validation. Faith is her fire. That invisible, unshakable belief in a God she's never seen, but has felt in the deepest parts of her pain. That's what lights her up. She wakes up in the morning, not because life is easy, but because faith told her. She walks into rooms she used to be afraid of because faith told her, you belong here. Faith isn't just something she reads about. It's how she breathes. It's how she survives heartbreak. It's how she holds her head up when life hits her like a storm. Because faith isn't passive. It's not soft. Faith is fierce. There's a woman who's been trying to conceive for years. Every negative pregnancy test feels like another dagger to her soul. The world says, give up. The doctors say, it's over. But every month she lights a candle, lays her hand on her belly and says, God, I still believe. Another woman lost her husband unexpectedly. One day he was there, the next he was gone. Grief wrapped around her like chains, but even in the darkness, she kept worshiping, she kept praying, not because she didn't feel the loss, but because she felt the presence of the one who held her through it. She said, Lord, I don't understand, but I trust you. That's not ordinary courage. That's not self-help. That's faith on fire. Think about the young woman grown up in poverty. Nobody around her has a degree. Nobody owns property. But she sits in her room with books in her lap and says, I will break the cycle. Then there's the woman who beat cancer. The chemo was brutal. Her body was wrecked. Hair gone. Skin pale, appetite gone. But every time she looked in the mirror, she didn't say, I'm dying. She said, by his stripes, I am healed. She placed sticky notes of scripture all over her walls. She anointed her medicine bottles. Because faith makes you fight differently. Not with fists, but with fire. not with sight, but with spirit. People ask her, how are you still smiling? She says, because my joy doesn't come from what's around me. It comes from what's within me. Her situation didn't shift yet, but her spirit already has. That's faith. That's fire. A woman living in an abusive home finally gets the courage to leave. She has no savings, no plan, just faith. She packs her bag with shaking hands, whispers a prayer, and steps out. People say, you're crazy. But she says, I'm not crazy, I'm covered. Faith told her, God will make a way. Faith told her, better is coming. And even when the nights are cold and lonely, her faith keeps her warm like a fire that will not go out. And there's the single mother. She's raising 3 kids on her own. No child support, no help. But every night, she kneels beside their beds, lays hands on their heads and says, God, bless these babies. Cover them. Use them. She's not parenting from her strength. She's parenting from her faith. Faith gives her the energy. But in that quiet fire, mountains move, doors open, miracles begin. Faith is the reason she didn't quit. Faith is the reason she still believes something greater is ahead. Because when you have faith as your fire, it doesn't matter what the enemy throws at you. You'll come through the flames without even smelling like smoke. She's not waiting for the world to clap for her before she moves. She's not standing at the door of other people's opinions asking for permission to walk into her destiny. She's not addicted to applause. She's not obsessed with likes, follows, or fame. She doesn't need validation because she carries vision. Vision is what wakes her up at 4 a.m. when the world is still asleep. Vision is what pushes her to keep building when nobody sees what she's building. Vision is what lets her walk into rooms where no one looks like her and still hold her head high. Validation fades, but vision fuels. There's a woman who opened a bakery in a small town. People told her it wouldn't work. There are too many bakeries. You should just get a regular job. You're not trained professionally. But she saw something they couldn't. She had a vision of women gathering in her shop sharing stories over tea, of her cupcakes bringing joy to someone's worst day. So she took her grandma's recipes, her last paycheck, and started baking from her tiny kitchen. She sold out in a week, not because people believed in her, but because she believed in the vision God gave her. She's like Noah building the ark with no rain in sight. She's like Esther walking into a palace with nothing but courage and purpose. She's like Sarah believing she could still birth something even when her time seemed up. Faith is not the absence of fear, it's the refusal to bow to it. Faith is not pretending everything is fine. It's trusting that even in the chaos, God is still working. It's the woman who shows up to church with tears in her eyes and lifts her hands anyway. It's the entrepreneur who invests what little she has and says, God, multiply it. It's the young girl who says no to the world's pressure because she believes God has something higher. And faith doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's a whisper, sometimes it's a tear, sometimes it's just getting out of bed when depression says, don't, right? You get in prison and 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 stop life out and serve life. And faith doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's a whisper. And stop out and serve out and serve. When a woman carries vision, she walks different. She's not distracted by gossip. She's not moved by critics. She's not shaken by silence, because her eyes are locked on what God whispered to her in the dark. There's a teenage girl who wants to be a doctor. She's growing up in a slum where even finishing school is a miracle. People laugh when she says, "I'm going to medical school." Her shoes are worn out. She studies under a street lamp when the lights are gone. But she sees herself in a white coat. She sees herself saving lives. And that vision burns so hot inside of her that no ridicule can put it out. She doesn't need validation, because vision is her compass. There's a woman who's launching a ministry. She's never been on a stage. She doesn't have a title. She's been through abuse, betrayal, rejection, but she has a voice. She sees women being healed through her story. She sees lives transformed through her testimony. So even when no one shows up to the first few meetings, even when the funds are low, even when people say, "Who do you think you are?" she keeps going, because vision doesn't wait for confirmation. It creates conviction. You see, when a woman has vision, she doesn't chase trends. She sets them. She doesn't beg to be seen. She lets her fruit speak. She's not insecure when others rise, because her lane is custom made. Vision gives her focus, and where there is focus, there is fire. A single mom working night shifts is building an online brand during her breaks. People think she's wasting time on her phone, but she's planning launches, responding to customers, building a future that her children will one day inherit. She's not showing off. She's showing up, because she sees something no one else sees: a home she owns, freedom she fought for, purpose she planted in tears. That's vision over validation. There's a wife whose marriage is falling apart. Her husband is checked out emotionally. Everyone's telling her to leave. But she's got a vision, a restored home, generational healing, a legacy of love that lasts. So she prays when it hurts. She forgives when it feels unfair. She seeks help, counsel, and wisdom, not because she's weak, but because she sees something stronger. Vision sees beyond the now. It sees what could be, not just what is. And then there's the woman who walks alone. She's misunderstood, often left out. But she's not lonely. She's just too focused to be distracted. She's in the cocoon stage, the seed stage, the private season before public elevation. She doesn't crave platforms. She's digging wells. And when her season comes, she won't have to explain herself, because vision will speak for her. Validation is like smoke. It disappears. But vision is a flame. It endures. And when a woman catches fire with vision, no one can stop her. She'll create with nothing. She'll build with broken pieces. She'll rise from ashes and still birth nations. So don't be surprised when she doesn't ask for your opinion. She's not being rude. She's trusting the God who gave it to her. And that's more powerful than any validation this world could ever offer. She doesn't walk alone. She walks with the whispers of grandmothers who prayed when the world gave them no voice. She carries the tears of mothers who sacrifice without applause. She's not just standing on her own. She's standing on the faith, the fire, and the fight of the women who came before her. Her strength is generational. She might be the first in her family to go to college, but she's not the first to dream. Her grandmother dreamed, but couldn't afford tuition. Her mother worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. And now she walks across that stage, not just with a diploma, but with generations of hope wrapped around her shoulders. She opens her mouth and speaks, and her voice carries the courage of the women who were told to be silent. She runs her business with the resilience of women who sold bread on street corners just to feed their kids. She raises her children with the wisdom of women who never read books, but raised kings and queens with their bare hands. There's a woman who grew up watching her mom endure the storms of life without ever breaking. She watched her cook meals with empty cabinets. She watched her smile with a heart that was breaking. And now, every time life tries to knock her down, she hears her mother's voice saying, "Baby, we don't quit. We conquer." Because strength like that doesn't start with her. It flows through her from those who paved the way. Her strength didn't start in the gym. It started in the kitchen where her mother prayed. It started in the fields where her ancestors worked with blistered hands. It started in the tears cried in the dark by women who refused to let poverty, patriarchy, or pain win. There's a woman raising her daughter alone. She tucks her in at night and whispers blessings over her. She doesn't have all the answers, but she's determined to give that little girl a better future. Why? Because she remembers the trauma of growing up without a voice, and she's decided the cycle stops with me. That's generational strength, not just surviving for herself, but building a foundation for the next generation to rise higher. A young woman watches her grandmother, who can barely walk now, still rise early to pray for her family, still speak scriptures over their name, still anoint their doors with oil. And she realizes, I come from power. I come from prayers that shook heaven. So when she walks into rooms and they question her worth, she doesn't shrink, because she knows, I'm not just one woman. I'm the product of generations of strength. There's a woman who never met her ancestors, but their courage is alive in her. The women who fled war, the women who fled babies in silence. She endures slavery, injustice, and pain, but still passed down faith, fire, and fight. That strength didn't die, it multiplied. And now it shows up in her walk, in her voice, in her spirit. She's the first in her family to start a business, but not the first to grind. Her great-grandmother sold handmade quilts. Her mother sold fruit on a roadside stand. She just took their hustle and turned it into legacy. Now her children will see her build and believe they can build too. That's what generational strength looks like. A seed becoming a forest. A woman leaves an abusive marriage, not just for herself, but for her daughters. She doesn't want them to normalize pain. She wants them to see that walking away is not weakness, it's wisdom. She says, I may have endured it, but they won't have to. That strength that goes beyond her, that's healing the bloodline. There's a woman sitting in therapy, breaking generational curses. The trauma she never understood is now being unpacked. She's learning to love herself, not just for herself, but so her children never have to recover from her brokenness. She's doing the hard work so they can walk in freedom. That's the strength of a woman who sees forward, who fights battles today so the next generation won't have to. When she worships, it's not soft, it's warfare. Because she's not just praising for herself, she's praising for the unborn, the unheard, the unseen. Her strength isn't loud, but it's legacy building. She doesn't need the spotlight. She's building a torch to pass on. She's the kind of woman who teaches her daughter how to pray and her son how to lead. She doesn't just raise kids, she raises generations. She sows seeds of dignity, faith, and resilience, knowing that one day her children's children will reap a harvest of peace and purpose. The world calls her strong, but they don't see the roots of that strength. Roots watered by sacrifice, held up by faith, wrapped in the stories of women who carried burdens silently but never gave up. She is not fragile, she is fortified. She is not just rising, she is lifting an entire legacy with her. She might bend, but she does not break because her spine is made of stories that survive fire. Her heart beats with the rhythm of warriors who came before her. And every time she steps forward, she's rewriting the history of her bloodline. That strength that doesn't end with her, it begins again in those who follow her. She's connected to something deeper, eternal, and unmovable. Her source is divine. And when heaven is your supply line, hell can't shut you down. There's a woman who lost her job and had mouths to feed. Everything looked like it was falling apart. The bills were piling. The pressure was rising. But instead of folding, she fell to her knees. She lifted her hands in worship and said, Lord, you are my provider. If I lose this, you'll give me better. And what happened? Peace flooded her soul. Doors opened she never knocked on because her source wasn't the paycheck. Her source was Jehovah Jireh. Another woman went through divorce. You can throw storms at her, but she won't drown. You can surround her with darkness, but she'll still shine. Because what's in her doesn't come from man, it comes from God. And when your source is unstoppable, your spirit becomes unshakable. This woman doesn't run on compliments. She runs on calling. She doesn't function by external power. She draws from a well that never runs dry. They said she wouldn't make it. They said she'd lose her mind after that heartbreak, after that betrayal. She felt abandoned, discarded, and crushed, but deep within, she heard a whisper, you are not alone. I will never leave you nor forsake you. And she got back up, not because the pain vanished, but because his presence sustained her. That's the kind of strength that can't be manufactured. That's the kind that flows from a living God. There's a single mother raising two sons. She doesn't have a degree. She doesn't have a big network, but every morning she wakes up, prays over her children, lays her hands on their heads, and speaks life. Her neighbors don't understand how she keeps going. Her co-workers don't see the secret, but the secret is she's plugged into the source. Every time she gets weary, she goes back to the throne of grace, and he renews her, because they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. Her smile confuses the enemy. Her joy makes no sense, because you can't explain someone who's fueled by the Holy Spirit. She's not moved by mood swings. She's anchored in truth. She's not swayed by storms. She's rooted in purpose. She walks through fire and doesn't smell like smoke, because God walks in the fire with her. There's an elderly woman in a village who has nothing material to show, but her presence changes the atmosphere. When she prays, demons flee. When she speaks, wisdom flows. She's been through war, famine, grief, but she walks with calm authority, because she doesn't just know God, she abides in him. Her spirit has been tempered in trials, and her fire never burns out. Not because she's lucky, but because she's linked to the eternal flame. People wonder how she keeps rising. They ask, how do you stay calm when all is chaos? She says, I've got a peace that passes understanding. They ask, how do you keep loving after betrayal? She says, I'm filled with a love that's not of this world. They ask, how do you stay standing? Her spirit is unbreakable, not because she hasn't been broken, but because every time she was broken, she bled purpose. Every hit only made her wiser. Every loss only made her lean deeper into the one who holds all things together. And now she doesn't flinch when hell trembles, because she knows the same power that raised Jesus from the dead lives in her. She is not a footnote in history. She is the story. She is not the background. She is the battle, the breakthrough, and the banner that says, I survived. You can't define her by what she's been through, because what she came out of didn't weaken her. It refined her. She's not just walking. She's marching with every step, fueled by purpose, pain, and prophecy. Every scar on her body, every tear she's ever cried, every battle she's ever fought, it wasn't for nothing. It was shaping her into a force that hell can't handle and heaven can't ignore. She doesn't need permission to rise, because the fire in her bones was lit by a God who speaks galaxies into existence. And when he says, arise, shine, she doesn't ask for votes. She takes her place. Her worth is not up for debate. Her anointing is not up for discussion. You can dislike her, misunderstand her, or walk away from her, but you can't deny that she was born for something greater. When life hit her with waves, she didn't drown. She learned how to swim. When storms tried to bury her, she didn't disappear. She bloomed in the rain. When doors slammed in her face, she built her own door and walked through it with grace and grit. That's not just resilience. That's not just strength. That's divine fire wrapped in feminine flesh. She is what happens when purpose meets pressure and refuses to fold. She says, because I know in whom I have believed. Her confidence isn't arrogance, it's anchored. Her resilience isn't random, it's rooted. Her glow isn't surface, it's spirit. Because the oil she carries wasn't bought, it was birthed in the crushing. Let them talk, let them doubt, let them walk away. They can't break what they didn't build. They can't stop what they didn't start. Because when God is the source, man's rejection is irrelevant. And when heaven is backing her, earth has no vote. She's not scared of setbacks because she knows her setup is spiritual. She's not intimidated by warfare because she walks with a heavenly army. She's not afraid of the unknown because her future is already finished in the mind of God. She is what happens when a woman refuses to be defined by her past but dares to be propelled by her promise. She's not intimidated by the giants in the land because she knows the size of her God. Like David, she doesn't come with a sword. She comes with a stone and a God who never misses. Her voice doesn't just speak, it shakes atmospheres. Her walk isn't just a stroll, it's a declaration. Every time she chooses to keep going, she breaks another chain. Every time she chooses to love after loss, she shifts a generation. Every time she chooses to forgive, to believe, to stand, she's not just surviving, she's setting a new standard. Let them talk, let them whisper, let them wonder how she keeps standing. And when they ask her, she'll smile and say, it wasn't me, baby. It was the God who kept me when I couldn't keep myself. It was the oil that flowed when I was crushed. It was the vision I carried when I had no validation. You see, this isn't just a comeback, it's a coronation. This isn't just a recovery, it's a rebirth. She's not waiting for a crown, she was born royal. She's not asking for light, she's been carrying it all along. So to every woman who's ever been broken, silenced, ignored, or underestimated, hear this. You are not what happened to you. You are not your trauma. You are not your mistakes. You are the keeper of generations, the carrier of vision, and the conduit of glory. Walk like you know who you are. Speak like you've already won. Stand like you're backed by heaven because you are. And when the enemy whispers, who do you think you are? You smile and reply, I'm the daughter of a king. I'm the echo of prayers I didn't even know were prayed. I'm the answer to the pain that tried to kill me. I'm her, the one hell hoped would never rise, but God ordained to reign. You are not finished. You are not empty. You are not defeated. You are unbreakable because your source is unstoppable. So go ahead and rise, woman of fire, woman of purpose, woman of power, because the world hasn't seen your full glow yet, but heaven already knows your name.